Welcome to Diversity, a podcast on all things diverse, equitable, and inclusive, brought to you by the Confederation of Indian Industry and Avtar, powering workplace cultures. This is Avatar's 25th year. So, this podcast is really looking at all of those people who have done some incredible work in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just taking away inspiration from everything that they have to share, and then going back to our workplaces and seeing if we can implement at least some of it in our own lives and our workspaces. So, this week we have with us the incredible Harish. He is the Senior Vice President and Head of DEI at Axis Bank. And he is one of those people that have, simply by their presence, by their passion, and by their resilience, taught us so much about how we can create inclusive spaces for everyone and how we can actually open up discussions for people not only to feel courageous to come out of the closet, to be their true selves, but also for allies to join into that movement and make sure that India Inc. is actually truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Harish, welcome to the show, and it's wonderful having you with us.
Likewise, Dr. Saundarya. It's a real privilege to be speaking to you.
Thank you, Harish. I'm going to jump right in and just tell you that when we were researching for the show and we were going through all of that you've done, it truly was humbling to note the extent of warriorship that you have actually depicted in this entire journey. The person that, first of all realized that he was different, then started working to first of all create an economically viable identity for himself, and then moved on to tell the world what this was all about. And to have started from the place that you began and to where you are in terms of your influence, in terms of the kind of impact that you're having, the sheer impact, the number of times I've shared a stage with you or listened or heard you speak and seen the way the audience would get moved by you, innumerable. And so I just wish to ask you, and this is going to be a free flowing conversation. How does it feel now when you look back and just think of all of those peaks and troughs?
I think, very frankly, you know, we all need to pause and reflect on and look at our past with a lot of gratitude. And that's the first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning. I spend at least 5 minutes on the bed, uh, just just looking at my entire life and being very grateful to where I have reached today. Not with the sense of pride, but with the sense of humility, uh, that I could have perished, but I survived, and I not only survived, in many ways I'm thriving. And every day is a humble acknowledgement of that. And only when you acknowledge your journey will the journey acknowledge you and be fruitful for you in the future. That's something that I do. I think my personal journey has been looking at several identities, not just one identity of my sexuality. Um, first I was known as an animal lover. That was one of my biggest identities that was very close to my heart. So every time you said Harish, there was some animal that you'd think of that I would be rescuing. Then came my identity of being a child sex abuse survivor. I happened to be, I didn't have any reference that time of any other male survivors of child sexual abuse. So I decided to be the reference point by speaking about my story. Then, of course, my sexuality. I came out about it. So, and then my gender. When I was around 40, I realized that I I mean, life is too beautiful to fit into just one gender, and I thought, and I could embrace my gender fluidity at that time. So I think life for all of us is a series of coming out, for all of us, and when you come out, you have the responsibility to call people in. So I think now our responsibility is to call people in and to tell them that the spectrum is larger than what you thought, and there is more rainbow than the hue that you see.
It's beautiful too. That was so beautiful to just simply listen and soak in. Tell us about Jimmy.
Oh, that's a question that many people have not asked me. Uh, Jimmy was my dog. When I used to be very afraid of animals. I admired them, but I was very scared of them. There was this one time though that my uncle got home a dog, and and I was scared. I was wearing a lungi at that time. I remember I was up the tree and the lungi was down, and that was my first interaction with my dog Jimmy. But once I got down and once I saw that he was being my friend, I I he became my confidant, and that's what my mission in life has been, to be a dog to somebody. Don't be a human, because dog is the inverse of God, right? So just be dogs. I mean, so when someone calls someone the B word, I don't think it's a bad thing, because it really means that you're speaking about someone really compassionate.
Really divine, really divine. Someone who's so non-judging, who's so accepting of you, who loves you in ways it's just beyond expression, and someone who's always there for you. And Harish, I want to ask you, your ability to articulate, your ability to communicate. And while, yes, that has also been a part of your work identity in some of the jobs that you've held, in some of the work that you've done, when did you discover this felicity of expression?
I think I think there is this stereotype, right, that queer people are very creative. Okay. It is
Indeed.
not just queer people. Anyone who faces subjugation will find creative ways of expressing themselves. So some people, I mean, I say it very famously and shamelessly that I can't even draw a straight line. I'm that gay. Okay. But my art was not my calling. Like fine art was not my calling. Public speaking became my calling, because I think the art of just sharing my story in so many different ways to so
Yes.
many people, to just amuse myself, because when you're speaking about the same thing, when you're the first in anything,
Yeah.
it becomes very difficult, because people will ask you to narrate the same story, and it causes its own set of trauma, right? I I equipped myself with telling my stories in so many different ways to different audiences. So it just was a skill set that I developed. And most queer people develop some skill set of expressing themselves, because only when you're confined, you realize that you don't want to be defined by what confines you. You want to be defined, but with what liberates you. And that quest for liberation is what shows in creative forms. And speaking or writing only happens to be one other creative form than artistry, or any carpentry or any kind of those things. So I think my sexuality and the oppression helped me a lot.
I want to ask a slightly, controversial or a touchy question here. I once had, another member of the queer community on a show, and one of the things he said was that for people of the queer community to gain acceptance, to do anything at all, they first have to bring fungible talent to the table. So nobody is going to give you work because of a particular identity. They're going to give you work if you bring fitness to purpose. So if there is a job in for which you are eminently qualified, then people keep your sexuality or your queerness, or the fact that you're a second career woman who's taken a huge break, or that you're a person with a disability, to the, slightly to the back. and focus on your talent. Now, one of the things I worry about, and I worry about this a lot, is that today, with the rise of DEI as a subject, and all of us in this space, we have done so much to make sure that people whose voices haven't been heard are now heard. But I don't want that to be something which replaces talent. So how do we manage this conundrum, and how do you do that in a place like Axis Bank, where you're leading the DEI efforts? How do you make sure that this exact stereotype that you spoke about, where people believe that if you are if they say this, if God has not given you, has closed a door, then he opens another door somewhere else or something like that. So how do you kind of remove that stereotype, and how do you encourage people to actually build their talent even before they come forth with their identity? What is the right way to do this? I mean, I
I
just want to
think
understand this.
I think your talent and your identity are not divorced from each other. They are not divorced. I mean, when we say bringing your authentic self to work,
Mm, mm,
it also means your personal self to work. I don't drop my queer identity when I go to work.
yeah.
I go to work with my queer identity, just as every heterosexual person does. Like every time there is a dinner table, there is a discussion during lunchtime about women or men and their children.
Mm,
That is heterosexual identity at work,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Uh, just that when there is an identity which is fewer in number, which could be your disability identity, or it could be your sexuality, or it could be your religion.
Mm,
When it comes to these identities, it becomes, because it's smaller in number, the onus doesn't lie on that group to prove itself. The onus lies on the other group, which is in majority, to
okay.
make space for people who are in this thing. And because these identities, these different identities, which are variables, are not divorced from each other. So my talent comes in because I am an LGBTQI plus person. If you remove my LGBTQI plus identity, or the fact that I'm a survivor, or if I was a woman and if I was divorced, or if I was second career woman, uh, any of these, my experience is my identity. So if you disown that experience, you are disowning me. And if you say something like, for instance, in Access we started something called housework is work.
Mm,
Okay. In identifying that women and men, we never said that this was a gender. People assumed that women are the ones who do housework. Okay, I think that it was also open to men and transgender people who are who are doing work. Her entire thing was because I've grown up looking, my experience of growing up and looking at my mother staying at home cooking food for everybody. Okay, but I've seen my aunts who actually work. We lived in a joint family, who worked
mm,
in an office, who came home and they said that, oh, Padma can do everything. Padma is staying at home. I'm going out and doing this. But no, there was a lot of, that's a skill set that she was putting in place. And she used to read all the newspapers and everything, and she could accept me uh, despite the fact that she's 11th. She is SSLC pass, right? So uh, whereas people who have done their MSc and PhD and MBAs in my family didn't find the acceptance for me, right? But for her, she was, because she didn't just stay at home, she also upskilled herself by reading and understanding. She was the one who did banking all the time. I know every little thing about banking only from her. So, so the thing is, the belittling of people who come from niches is something that we need to stop. And also understanding that no, your identity is an integral part of you. I will not, if tomorrow someone tells me to remove my identity and go to work, I will not choose, reject that organization that tells you to do that. In fact, I know we don't have that privilege many a times, but if you have the privilege, reject an organization which ask you to drop your identity and to join the workplace. No, you're a mother, you are a queer person. You're everything when you come to the workplace. You're not one. You're everyone when you come to the workplace. Every identity is you.
Just on that point, um, many a time, what typically ends up happening is that there is a case for representation. There is a case for diversity, and this entire thing about there being a business case in the case of organizations, and we're talking about the workplace. Now, there seems to warrant a need for very heavy data backed reasons for why this should happen. And I'm when I started Avatar, which was in 2000, and the initial few years of going to organizations and basically telling them that you're not looking at this talent pool of women who have taken a break in career, and they're just growing by the numbers. Huge numbers of them are there, and they're getting produced every year because the system forces them to take a break. You don't have the infra there for them to continue. And it's not that they don't want to, but they can't. So now, if you're going to reject them saying, you have a break, then, you're really missing the whole point. Now, during that time, I realized that after a few iterations, maybe after a few years of, doing the same thing again and again, this whole thing of the business case became such a bugbear, and at every aspect, to try and create more and more data points to kind of fit it in the worldview of whichever organization, whichever leader you're going and pitching it to. After a point of time, that really kind of got to me. And this is in a heterosexual environment where you're merely talking about providing opportunities. Acceptance could even come later. I want to understand from you, first of all, Harish, not only as a leader of the function at Axis today, but also at one point of time when you were the outsider and you were looking at getting in. How did you handle this whole aspect for there being a need for a business case?
I think it's deplorable, personally, that you need to, and I should not mince words when I say this. It's deplorable that you would think of, oh, it profits, that's why you need to do this. You don't need to do it because they are a talent bunch, they are incredibly talented. You don't need to do it because they bring the wealth of experience and insights that no one else will be able to. Second career woman will be able to look at life in a very different way because she has taken a break. She has, in that break, she didn't just take the break and sit and do nothing. She upskilled herself, probably, right? And when she comes back to the workplace, you are going to quantify her with how many people like this have done the same thing. I think it's deplorable, but it's also a necessity in a world which looks at everything with numerics.
Yeah.
So what happens if uh, tomorrow there are few exits with LGBTQI plus people? Are we going to just say that everyone in the LGBTQI plus community or the second career woman community are they all are not worth it and you don't need to focus on them? So if the data swings on this side, you'll
Mhm.
speak that, oh my God, they're so good, because we all want to swing that story. But suddenly when the data doesn't work in your favor, you're going to throw them out. I think a true organization that is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and if these are buzzwords, just to the value of respect and belongingness, right, is an organization that will stand beyond data, not because it's a good thing to do, but because is the right thing to do, because our organizations have to be representative of the consumers we are serving. So it all lands up to commerce also, to the
Yeah.
to the fact that if there are so many people in the outside world, if the outside world is 50% women, if our consumers make up to 40-50% women, then why aren't our employees reflecting the same number over there? So in a data driven world, I think we need to nuance the data around building. a narrative that says that it's not a good thing to do, it's the right thing to do. If they get lured by consumer numbers and other things, use that. I mean, we need to beat them in their own game. And I'm not speaking as a representative of Axis alone, but just generally, um, we need to beat them, and we need to tell them that the best way to do it is that to reflect the same truth in society, right? So that's
I
how we
love
need.
that you started off by saying it's deplorable, and then you went on to give ideas as to how do you beat the system. I just yeah, it's great. Harish, one more question along the same lines. Now there are many organizations which do not have the luxury of having the ability to experiment. Now I'm saying this because we work with a lot of small and medium businesses, and in many of those small and medium businesses, the leader themselves probably do not have the kind of power to experiment with also combining a social imperative into the talent strategy. And in such cases, whenever we interact with those leaders, they constantly, they ask us, what can you arm me with? For me to be able to, for instance, it could be a second generation family owned business. And that scion, if you were to call it, of the business owner, the second generation, if he or she wants to create that social change, they are not able to do it because they face tremendous pushbacks within a culture which is kind of closed minded. How would the change process in such organizations begin, Harish?
I think there is no better vehicle to change than stories and narratives. Build more stories, build a more, for you to build a more humane organization, you need to build a more human organization. And to build a more human organizations are built only with stories, empowering stories, and stories not just of triumphs, but also stories of defeats.
Yes.
Okay, stories of how the human spirit has been defeated, and how people conquered and achieved where they wanted to reach. I think I think change is possible. I mean, when we speak of culture, culture is not a monolith, and
Mhm.
culture is not etched in stone. What was culture yesterday is not culture today, and what is culture today will not be culture tomorrow. Like, for instance, if I remember when I would wear shorts and go out as a presenting male, when I would wear shorts and go out, my father used to scream at me saying that, hey, why you wearing shorts and going out? There are so many other people, wear a full pant in. Okay. Now, today, today I go dressed in a salwar kameez or wear a skimpy womanly outfit and go out, and he doesn't say anything. I think our culture and times change and people change. To
Yes.
believe in the resilient spirit of people, to understand that culture is in the metamorphosis of it, not in the stagnancy of it, is something that people will have to understand. No matter how I think every time when we say things like, oh my God, I've heard this many a times, in my organization this is difficult,
Mhm.
then what should we speak about banks? I mean, I work with Axis Bank, an Indian bank. The fear that was there in my head was, oh my God, how am I going to thrive in this culture? Because I also had the thought in my mind that this is going to be. I have gone to banks and I've seen them dressed in suited, booted. Uh, though some of them used to look pretty, but I never went on a date, Dr. Saundarya, with a banker because I thought that they were boring. Okay, but I ended up working with a bank, and not just working at the bank. Our CHRO Rajkamal Empathy, with her vision, I could also um, charter uh, a set of policies where people could come dressed the way they are. Of course, we have dress code policies per se. The most ideal would be to not have one, which we'll reach someday. But at least today, I could go dressed as a woman if I feel like a woman to be to the workplace, right? So I think, and had she and Amitabh and everyone in this organization, board members, everyone in this organization thought that this is an uh, this person is an outcast and uh, creating conflict, we wouldn't have come further. In fact, conflict is very good. The seed of change, the genesis of change happens with conflict. So get a conflicting idea over there. You will see the metamorphosis. It's like putting curd in milk and it's curdling. Uh, Not the right example as a vegan, but still, uh, I said that curdling thing is what the conflict will bring in. So get in different people. You will be amazed by how things can change and how things can change for the better if you actually get someone with a conflicting idea coming and joining your organization.
Yeah. Super. I'm sure, our audience who's watching this, and especially members of organizations and, second generation leaders, I'm sure they're going to find this hugely valuable. The power of stories and the power of creating a human organization in order to become a humane organization. So, Harish, moving on. The word wokeness or wokeism, why is it under so much of pressure today? Why is it under such a cloud? And why has the real and true origin and purpose of it, which essentially meant that you've woken up. It just meant that you have opened your eyes to the truth and the reality. Why has it moved this way? And what should be done to make sure that all the good work that is done is not kind of relegated to the background? What should we do?
I think I think when there is opposition, there is also an opportunity. Okay. Every time you stand up for something, you are also standing up against something. You're standing up against patriarchy. You're standing up against bottling everyone as a cisgender person, which is happening in the US right now, right? So you're standing for something. That means you're standing against something, which also means that the ones who stand against you will also have a voice, and that's a great moment for a dialogue, right? Sometimes sometimes the dialogue goes down south, right? But there are times when that's the time when there are movements in the grassroots that start mushrooming as well. There are movements not just against something but also for something, right? So I think that we need to the reason why this is happening is because Newton once famously said that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? And while the word woke, and when we start to term things and we start to box things, it becomes easier for people to oppose it. When you say woke or when you say queer, it's put in a box over there.
Mm.
Okay, so come, let's go and attack this population. But if we appeal to the wokeness in everybody, whether you're right wing or left wing, whether you're right handed or left handed, we all are woke about something. Okay. It simply means that we are awake about something. We are awake
Yeah.
about some reality. When we open up to that, when we appeal to the wokeness of the people who are opposing us also, right? For instance, for somebody who opposes trans people, okay, if you appeal to them and you tell them, you go and meet them and you speak to them, you understand them, you sit down with them, chat with them, not just online, but you actually call them for diversity and sit down with them and speak to them, you will see that much of the times all the things that they're thinking will evaporate. The truth is that we don't speak to people, we speak at people. And when we start speaking to people, things will change. When you actually call them out for a dinner, call them up for a dinner rather than just time is gone for calling out. I think now is the time to call people in,
Oh,
right? So
beautiful.
call people in as much as you call people out, and sometimes it's necessary, I know, but still don't close the door. Call people in.
Our next segment is going to be the rapid fire segment.
But before that, I have to ask a question to you.
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to know from you, Dr. Saundarya. You wrote this beautiful book on the 99-day challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, by career doctor. Okay, where did what was your own personal journey? Why would what what actually occurred in your life that made you write? Because I think we all are a product of what happens to us in our real lives. So what happened to you in your life that actually provoked the reaction which was in the form of this beautiful book?
Harish, first of all, thank you so much for asking that question. And it's just you just spoke about, calling in. And I think you just did that. You just kind of, gave me the space to tell my story in this podcast. So, there are two books. Conversations with the Career Doctor is the latest one. And the 99-day Diversity Challenge is the one prior to that. Well, my story goes back to 1990 when I got a fantastic job at Citibank. I was also a banker like you in the initial years of my life. And, after 3 years or so, the three M's for me happened: marriage, maternity, and lack of mobility. And then I decided to quit. I quit, and then, within very few months, I realized that, I could sort things out at the home front. I could, make sure that I was able to handle everything together. And, people were understanding and accepting of the fact that I wanted a place of self expression. And the corporate world was where I felt most comfortable. So I decided I would kind of, go back to talk to people, saying that, yeah, I've taken this whatever number of months of break, and then, I want to come back. The first couple of meetings, I realized that, they were looking at me almost like a fresher, not counting the 3 years of excellent experience, which was actually a fast track career back in the day, that I had, and a multifunctional career in sales, ops, in merchant services and all of that. So then I said, okay, maybe, maybe I need to do something more upskilling, what you said. Except that I decided that my upskilling would be, in the space of English literature. So I was a BA English literature gold medalist. And then I said, okay, let me do my MA. So I did my MA. I, got certified in the national eligibility test for lectureship. And then, but somehow that whole thing of teaching English didn't really appeal to me. So I went back to, to the corporate world. By then, my break had almost become 3.5 years, almost 4 years. And by then I had my second kid too. So when I went back, they were quite brutal in their, dismissal of me, saying that, the break was too big for them to actually even look at me seriously. And the unkindest cut of all came when I went for an interview with SkyCell. There used to be that telecom cellular company called SkyCell. And, he found me suitable, was about to give me the job, looked at the break, then called the recruiter who had sent me and just blasted her, saying he felt cheated that there was this candidate with a 4-year yawning break that had somehow slipped through the system and landed in front of him. So I think, that was really the moment when I said, Avatar has to kind of come into existence, because it means that you're providing avatars to people, a second avatar. The fact that you were somebody else who took a break for whatever reason. See, today we have the My Avatar portal, in which we have women of every identity there. We have second career women. We have women from the queer community. We have women who are persons with disabilities. We have women who are senior citizens. We have women who are from the defense. And they all are, there because they all seek second careers. They all seek the other avatar. So I think all of that kind of went into these two books. And yeah, it's been fun. And more than anything else, I think it's the satisfaction of being in this space, meeting people like you, Harish, which is
Hmm.
such an inspiration for all of us. So thank you for
You
asking
know,
me that question. Your three rapid fire questions are coming up right now. And the first question is this: post Jimmy, who has been, your pet kid that has taken up that space?
No one. I don't think people can replace or animals can replace each other. But I have a cat. My grandmother doesn't like cats, so I've named him Krishna. And now she can't get away with Krishna. And I have a dog called Sonia. Um and so I'm a pet parent with two lovely children.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Krishna and Sonia. Okay. Um, my second question, second rapid fire question is: you spoke about being the first person, yeah? The first one to tell that story, the first one who had to come out and speak about CSA. My question is this: have you had a mentor who's helped you in this process? Um, and if so, who is that?
I think there have been several mentors per se. One of them, not every mentor mentors the way in the traditional way. I think Sridevi has been a mentor. I just met her once on the sets of Satyamev Jayate. But Sridevi has been a mentor. Her film and her body. Your mentoring doesn't need to be a person, it could be a body of work that could mentor as well.
Wow.
So I think her body of work had mentored me. But the biggest mentor that you can have is the 5 minutes that you spend in the bed thinking about where you were and where you are now, not with a sense of pride, but with a sense of humility and gratitude. I think your own life is your mentor.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you. Um, Final rapid fire question. And I have to ask you this: the enormous amount of positive energy, that vibrancy, that sense of being very, very grounded, there is some kind of a, effusive sort of a joy that comes out of you. Um, what are your practices for this kind of a positive bearing? Of course, gratitude you spoke about. Anything else? What else do you do? What could you advise for people to bring this joy and this purpose and this sense of presence?
I think when you have a bad story, we often make an example of the bad story. I always make the example of the good story, right? So, what didn't go right? No, this went right. So, to change the narrative in our heads, I think that helps me quite a lot. Secondly, I own every emotion. If I feel jealous, I would tell the person I'm feeling jealous. If I'm upset, I would say that I'm upset, and I appeal to the goodness in people. Though many people, uh, I have I have faced failures also for that, where people would tell me that, oh, why do you have to go and speak about this to this person? I said I thought that I could trust the person. I have gone and trust. If they have betrayed my trust, it's on them. It's not on me.
How awesome was this?
I
Thank you, Harish. Thank you so much. Big virtual hug to you. And
love you, Saundarya.
just give you every wish for you to do amazing things and create a much, much better world around you in every form of, thoughtful affirmation that you are, constantly kind of sending out into the world. Here's a big thanks from all of us at Avatar and the Confederation of the Indian Industry for a most
Thank you.
amazing
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a bunch. Folks, I think this episode was one of those absolutely special ones, I would say. And, um, the sense of freshness about the ideas that were expressed by Harish, Senior Vice President and Head of DEI at Axis Bank, gave me a feeling of renewed energy, renewed sense of commitment to making the world truly a better place. We hope to bring you many more such conversations where it's no holds barred and you can just listen to the heart of the individual that's sitting opposite in this diversity podcast. So stay tuned, and this fortnightly podcast is going to bring you inspiration. It's going to help you decide how you wish to make your workplace and your home and the space that you live in more inclusive and equitable for everyone. Thank you.